My dog's ear came off in the wash.
That's one of the things I remember.
Oh, will my arms come off? I was just about in tears.
I wish everybody in the whole world could see this. We just got out of the theater. We saw Won't You Be My Neighbor, the new documentary about Mr. Rogers' life. And
Fred Rogers, hell of a guy.
Really, right? Especially when you learn this much more about him. And I hadn't stayed up with what he had done in his later years, and only really remember him from my childhood.
Yeah, here.
But I always had fond memories of the guy. But this movie really painted him as kind of a really unique, sort of a philanthropist, and just somebody who loved life and loved people.
Yeah. I think it's good. A good thing they did this documentary. I think a lot of people would enjoy it. I mean, in a lot of people's minds, you think back on Mr. Rogers as like a cornerstone in your childhood. A lot of people, and there's a reason for it. He was kind of an innovator, The show back in the whatever it was, the late 60s, when he first did his show, there was a lot of television shows for children, supposedly, that were just silly clown shows, pie in the face stuff,
right?
And or shoot 'em ups, cowboy western things or whatever. But he took a different road. He took on a lot of issues.
Well, yeah. To summarize sort of the message of his show that I remember and reinforced by the documentary was just basically a message of love for people. Be kind.
Love, tolerance.
Generous, tolerant.
All that good stuff.
Amazing message. I wish everybody in the whole world could see this. This
Couldn't
video.
hurt.
I think it would soften a few people's hearts and help remind us of things and opportunities where we can choose to be kind or annoyed, and maybe take the high road. But so yeah, this documentary basically was about his life and his TV show.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it talked a little bit about his life as a child, and one of the people in the things who were interviewed said, well, because Mr. Rogers, his name was Fred, and when he was a child, he was a little overweight, so they used to call him Fat Fred. So he went through a lot of trials and tribulations and bullying when he was younger. But the person who was being interviewed said, if it wasn't for Fat Fred, there might not be a Mr. Rogers.
I think it helped him to really empathize with children and relate to children well into adulthood and beyond. He was a kid at heart, just always connected with the mindset of a child, and I don't think many people can do that. Even if you're really good with children, it's hard to do that sometimes. I know I couldn't.
But yeah, it takes a special person.
Yeah, definitely. He was a special guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that the documentary it reminded us of some of the important messages too that he covered on his show, and so they were big issues. They were dealing with death, assassination. When it was, I think it was Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, just
hard issues.
Dealing with the world, divorce. I'm sure it wasn't all just dark and negative stuff.
No. But children have questions, right?
Right.
And they're exposed to the media and adults, and they don't have the same perspective on things. And he really just approached it without talking down to them, showing them love, trying to reassure them that they would be taken care of and loved, but that these problems or issues in the world, that there are things that are that we have to deal with, and try to approach it responsibly but lovingly. And that's one of the things I remember watching the show when I was a kid. I mean, of course, I
Yeah.
like things like Sesame Street, and the Electric Company, and all those bad cartoons, of
Sorry.
G.I. Joe and Transformers and all the
Love G.I.
damage and
Joe.
stuff.
Come on.
The violence. But I do remember the talking puppets and with Mr. Rogers, and what they would talk about these hard issues, and I just remember being enthralled by it.
I like there's one scene in particular where he's talking about a group of children he was speaking to, and he just sat down and listened, and one little boy spoke up and said, "My dog's ear came off in the wash."
Mm-hmm.
And all the kids went, like, oh,
What
yeah, they're waiting for something. And Mr. Rogers said, yeah, that happens sometimes to toys, but we're not like that. We don't, things don't come off our ears, our nose, our arms. And the little boy said, our legs. You got it.
Right.
It's just things on that, even on that level. That's a really beginner type developmental thing where maybe as a kid you don't know, like, will my arms come off? Will strange things happen?
Yeah.
It's just interesting and a cute story.
Well, he's really insightful.
Yeah.
A bit of a philosopher of how to
Absolutely.
live life, and how to help children see life. It's amazing. I think he realized that children become adults, right? And to have children of their own, and he wanted to be that positive influence. And I'm so glad that there's somebody like him in my life, because I remember those things. And this documentary just really informed me of so much of the good that he did. I'm actually sort of upset that I didn't know as much about him as the documentary said. I wish that he
it's good.
was
It's
more
good that
mainstream.
now you're aware of him more.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just probably where you are. Like, it's a kid show. Yeah, I kind of remember it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And what you see in the documentary is, there's so much more.
Yeah.
So much more to the guy and to his life and to his desire to help people and help them get through things. One scene in particular where the little boy who we had on the show, who was going in for surgery, had some cancer issue, and the little boy was in a wheelchair, and I was just about in tears. He just had the boy on and sung a little song with them.
Yeah.
And this was just on the show, just a regular show. Had this little boy in with his electric wheelchair and his tiny little hands, and just like, he's so frail and little, and all he wanted was to meet Mr. Rogers, right?
Yeah.
His parents said, well, we're going to do something big for you, because they didn't think he was going to survive. I don't want to, spoil it too much, but that was just one of the great things, one of the many great moments in this movie. I highly recommend this movie. Definitely go see it if you get a chance.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get a chance, go see it.
Oh yeah. Make time.
Make time.
Support documentaries while they rarely make it to theaters. This one made it in, and it deserves your money. Unlike so many of the movies at the theater these days that are just barely deserve.
You can skip a few of the movies that are out right now and go see if you can find it. Hopefully it's in sort of a limited release, but I'm sure it'll be on VOD really quick too. So.
Well, so we loved Will You Be Our Neighbor, but let's make it official, Glen.
A+.
A+.
Go see it.
Go see it.
Nothing else to say. Bye. My dog's ear came off in the wash.
I wish everybody in the whole world could see this.